Someone famous once said that we are the results of our habits. Someone famous said that, I promise. So here's 5 habits that we use to improve our life on the homestead. Habit number 1 is this bucket right here. This is our composting bucket. So in this bucket goes all of the food scraps that we're not gonna eat, but we don't wanna throw away. And what we do with it is we throw it in our compost bin, and this is crucial here at the homestead. This compost bin is kind of like, honestly, the building blocks for this homestead. It creates soil so that we can in turn grow our own plants, so that we can feed ourselves, and then with the food scraps, we feed it right back to the chickens, and it's as complete of a cycle on the homestead as you can. So this number 1 habit, this easy habit that we do by composting and not throwing away our food scraps, is honestly kind of like an infinite food glitch in a way. Not really, but that's the idea of it. And one point is you don't need to have chickens to compost. You can still have your own little compost bin. Now they make those like tabletop ones that do the turning of it itself. It creates this like beautiful soil just off of food scraps from your kitchen. Mind-blowing, crazy. You don't need to have chickens, you don't need to have a big composting system like us, but this one little habit has done wonders for our homestead. Habits 2 and 3 are similar, but a little bit different, and that is daily weeding and daily harvesting. Now I want you to imagine the Amazon rainforest for a second. All right, you got that into your image? Now I want you to imagine taking the Amazon rainforest and putting it in this garden, because that was the situation with us last year. We had weeds taller than me. I'm 6 foot, actually I'm 6'5". And so this year, the habit that we said we have to stick to no matter what is to come out every day and do at least 5 minutes of weeding. Just picking these little guys out of here is so much easier to do when they're little than when they're giant. And it's so much less overwhelming to walk into a garden that has maybe little weeds here and there than it does walking into the Amazon rainforest. So this year in your garden, if you want to adopt one new habit, make it daily weeding. Habit number 3 is daily harvesting. Now this one is interesting because it's always fun to get that huge harvest, right? You get the hundreds of pounds of food or whatever, or like the buckets full of tomatoes, and it's super fun to like see that. But in practicality, it's so much easier if you're just coming every day and picking what fruit or what vegetable is ripest at that day, because overnight they could lose their peak ripeness. Overnight, the birds can come and eat it, or bugs can get to it. So whenever possible, try and harvest daily, because the harvest season, at least where we're at, is always short. And so making the most of it, don't lose an opportunity to harvest a fruit or vegetable at its peak ripeness or before something else decides to harvest it for you. So habit number 3, harvest your stuff daily. Quick pro tip too, if you want to take habit 3 to the next level, choose varieties that ripen at different times of the year. For example, you might have some tomatoes that take 90 days to ripen. You might have some tomatoes that take 75 days to ripen, some that take 120 days to ripen. That might be a long time, but you get the point. Choosing your varieties that ripen at different times of the year, 1, you'll get fresh produce longer throughout the year, and it makes your work a little bit easier so that you're not having to do all of it within maybe a week or 2 at peak harvest season. So choose your varieties wisely. For habit number 4, I'm actually going to backtrack on the daily habits that I just talked about, because even though it's good to harvest daily, I would say, you don't necessarily have to preserve everything daily. So for habit number 4, we're going to go back inside. So we're back inside, we're in our back room. It's a little dark in here, apologies, hopefully you can see, but can you spot in this image right now, there's 3 ways to preserve food. Can you spot them? Freezer, canner, dehydrator. Those are 3 of the main ways in which we preserve our food. Now the habit that we're talking about is bulk preservation. So to make our life easier, we really try and make it a priority, especially during the peak harvest season, to bulk preserve all of the produce that we get. So for example, we will have probably once a week, I would say, we'll have a day where we spend time and we preserve our tomatoes, because we always get a ton of tomatoes. So we'll always start with a huge amount and we'll go through the process. We will skin them, we will de-seed them, we will get them into a big crock pot and we'll start making sauce, or we'll start making salsas, or we'll dice them up for just general to have diced tomatoes on hand. But it's a lot easier to do that type of work in bulk, maybe in one day, than to get out the canner every single day and do it. Now, if you have the time, by all means, little batches probably is a lot easier, or maybe less time consuming. But we find it easier in our lives with our schedules and with a little guy to do, a few bulk days throughout the peak harvest season. Also, this guy's our best friend. It's kind of sad now. There's like nothing in there, literally nothing in there. But we don't try and overcomplicate our lives when it comes to preserving. Would it be nice to be able to can everything? Would it taste better? Probably, maybe, I don't know. Depends on your preference. But sometimes just chopping stuff up and throwing it in the freezer it's so much easier than doing the canner. It's just, don't sleep on the freezer. And this is probably the best habit tip I can give you is don't sleep on the freezer. Literally or figuratively. Habit number 5 coming up. Habit number 5 that we do on the homestead to create a better life is every night before we go to bed, we put 15 minutes on the clock and we just pick up the house. As you can imagine, with a 1-year-old, the house gets pretty chaotic, and then add a dusty, kind of dirty sometimes, grass clippings and branches and random things that get brought in from the homestead inside the house. It can be a lot, and it can get quite messy in here, not gonna lie. And so instituting this habit recently of just doing 15 minutes of pickup every night, it's been so nice to wake up and not have a pile of dishes everywhere. It's been so nice to wake up and not have shoes and toys and blankets and random things just scattered across the house when you walk into the living room and the kitchen. And it's when you have a clean space, I think you have a more peaceful space. And so just 15 minutes, and you don't even have to do that, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. If you don't do that, try it out. See what difference it makes in your life, in just your peacefulness in the mornings when you wake up, and your restfulness when you're getting ready to go to bed. You're not worrying about a dirty house. It's been super helpful for us. This one is not necessarily homestead specific. Anybody can do this. And I think it's going to improve your life in even just a small way. There it is, 5 things that we do to improve our life here on the homestead.